Hey, everybody, we are here today with Seamus Sullivan. He's got his debut book out, which is Daedalus is Dead. Want to thank Tor for getting me a copy of that one. Uh, this book was a quick and easy read. I think it was like 160 pages. Uh, that being said, and I'm gonna shut up now because I'm gonna get into that when we get to the book. First question out of the gate, I ask every author, what is your villain origin story?
Yeah, for me, I have a very vivid memory of one of the first adult sci-fi and fantasy books I ever held. In the free library in my neighborhood, Abington Free Library. I remember going upstairs from the children's section, which was in the basement, to the adult sci-fi and fantasy section, which was on the ground floor. It was very daunting because at the time it was just kind of a corridor. It was two shelves that sort of dead ended in a third shelf. So it was like kind of this little enclosed cul-de-sac. Very grown up, very daunting compared to the children's section. And I picked up The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury there. I've talked about this a few places. It had this beautiful cover. I think it was an edition from the 50s. There's a Martian on the cover wearing this jewel-like blue mask. There's a green spaceship that looks kind of like a giant bug. And that book tore the top of my head off. I didn't know you could do stories like that. I didn't know that you could sustain a writing style like that. And I wanted to kind of tear that apart and understand how it worked and learn to do that myself. And I still have not, but like the decades long process of failing to write at that level has kind of, kept me going from project to project and led me to wanting to write books myself. So that's kind of what got me this far.
Gotcha. Yeah, and a lot of people, they hear the word debut author and they forget about that decades-long process that went in to get to this point. One thing I do like to ask for the aspiring authors out there, what, as a writer, does a day in the life of Seamus Sullivan look like?
Yeah, so I appreciated on your website you describe yourself, I think, as a dad and a trophy husband, and I would describe myself the same way. I used to work in sales. Actually, I worked in sales for many years, which is not the worst job in the world to have if you want to sustain yourself at writing. There's some stability there, and you're kind of forced to develop some people skills there that you might not otherwise have, especially if you're in like an occasionally introverted creative field. But my wife works in television and has had enough success in the last few years that I was able to leave my day job and focus on being a stay-at-home parent and writing fiction when I'm not being a stay-at-home parent. And that was kind of one of the things that led to my writing the book, because so much of the book is about being a parent too. So my routine generally these days is I'll try and get up before the kids get up. As I know that look, yeah, because you really can't focus on anything other than the kids and in those first couple of hours of the morning once they're up. I'll try and get a little writing in then if I can. And then it's getting the kids ready, it's getting ready for school, drop-offs, all that. And then I get to usually come back to the house or stay out and write. Or I'll come back, I'll try to tidy up the house a little bit. I'll try to make some progress there, varying degrees of success. And then it's, pickups start in the afternoon, and then it's getting something ready for dinner, bath, bedtime, that kind of thing. And then, sometimes I will see my spouse and we'll watch a bit of a movie or something, or I'll read or try to get a little more housework done or some reading done, and then go to sleep and then ride the carousel all over again. So that's the routine these days. I hear it may get a little less intense as the kids get bigger, maybe not, but that's what it is right now.
Yeah. Luckily, mine are. I got through it. They're out of the house now, and obviously the gray. But yeah, I do remember those days. So, and then one last author advice question I have for you, just in general. you like said this is your debut novel, but it took a long time to get here. What would you tell either your young self or just any other aspiring author? Piece of advice, doesn't have to be writing advice, but just author advice that you maybe wish you'd heard sooner or that you did hear and helped you along.
Honestly, I think the best creative advice I ever got did come from my wife, Madhuri. She told me early in our friendship, early in our relationship, just whatever field you're in, especially if it's a creative field, find your people in that field. And I have never heard better advice, and everything that I've experienced as someone who's trying to do something creative, who's married to someone who's trying to do something creative, everything has borne that out. I mean, the entertainment industry is not always a reliable one. It is not always one that protects or values artists or the things those artists want to say. Fiction writing often does not pay the bills. I don't think there is an art form, and I don't think there is an industry that will single-handedly take care of you and give your life meaning and stability. But it can point you towards, I think, like-minded people who are studying the same things you are, who are interested in learning to express the same things you are. And those people, I think, if you're lucky, if you invest in those relationships, they can look after you. They can help you get through your life in a way that the work itself, the industry itself, will not always be there to do. So that kind of remains the advice to beat for me.
Perfect. Yeah, a lot of industries are kind of cutthroat. I will have to say, though, from most of the authors I've met and other people on YouTube and stuff who do the type of stuff I do, readers and authors, there are some exceptions, obviously, but they are much more of a rising tide lifts all ships. They are some of the most helpful, welcoming, if you want advice, just ask, I will give it to you type people that I have met. So it is a great industry to be in. But I do agree with you, for most authors, it's not a this is my main job. Those are the exceptions to the rule on that. But I love that advice. Yeah, definitely surround yourself with people who are willing to help you and just be willing to help them back. I don't normally do this, but there's a couple things on your little tour.com sheet here that I liked. So I'm going to bring these up and then we'll get into the book. First of all, we mentioned beforehand your friend Nat Cassidy. I noticed he did the blurb on yours. He has been on the channel twice, and I loved his blurb. So I'm just going to read this real quick. An exquisitely wrought, tenderly examined portrait of fatherhood, invention, legacy, tragedy, and myth that would make Roberto Colasso proud. The irony is, for such a title as Daedalus is Dead, the story and these characters have never felt more alive. And I love that because I read the book, obviously. And I've got some points to bring out of some of the stuff that Nat brought out. And then I don't know if you had anything to do with this or if this is all the marketing team at Tor. But I love this part at the beginning of the thing they sent to me. When debut author Seamus Sullivan was in his first days of fatherhood, he charted a path for his future by exploring the cautionary tales of antiquity. Between late nights and diaper changes, Sullivan unspooled the mythology of Daedalus, Icarus, King Minos, and the Minotaur, and a tale of mythology's infamous fathers and the sons seeking solace in their wake.
Wow.
I don't know who wrote that, but that is gold. I love that.
That wasn't me. That makes me sound much more impressive. I like that.
But yeah, that was perfect. So that was in the book that they sent me. Getting into the book, before I get into any details, I do want to ask you, and I think this kind of touches to it, but really, what got you into Daedalus and Icarus' story?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording. I think if you grow up with these stories, as I think hopefully a lot of my audience has, a lot of your audience probably has, they really stick with you. They make a big impression, especially if you encounter them at an early age, which I did. My parents got me Delairy's Book of Greek Myths, and that version in particular, I don't know when I would have read that. It would have been sometime in grade school. But everything in that really impressed itself on me. And there's a lot about the Daedalus story that got to me. I mean, some of it is, you know, if you're in a creative field, there's always some ego in there, and you're drawn to thinking about you know, characters in fiction who are in a creative field, who do something creative. The fact that Daedalus is this creative person whose most famous invention is this aesthetically fascinating and simultaneously like completely heartless and awful labyrinth in which people are fed to a man bull is such an interesting source of tension for me. I think that has always kind of been one of my big fears of having, you know, having this creativity that means so much to me, that means so much to, you know, so many of my friends and family, having that creativity co-opted in that way, you know, as it often is, and used against people. I think there's something very frightening and very potent about that, that I wanted to write about. So I don't know how much that answers your question. There's also, I realized recently in writing about this, I grew up with Batman, the animated series, and there is, maybe you've seen this episode. There's this amazing episode that introduces the Riddler, who is himself kind of a Daedalus figure, the way they portray the character. He's a video game designer who does not get fairly compensated for his work under the work for hire system at his company. So he does what anyone would do, and he builds an evil maze. And he traps his boss in the maze at the mercy of like a large bronze-looking Minotaur robot. And of course, Batman and Robin have to go in and solve riddles in order to rescue the guy. But you know, because it's Batman the animated series and it's this beautifully designed expressionist Art Deco open-air maze, I realized recently that that's kind of the maze I'm trying to evoke in the book. And I think that made as strong an impression on me as a kid as Daedalus the character. So when I was a very tired new father and I was trying to get back to writing, and this was in early 2021, by the way. So the first year of my kid's life and the first year in which we were parents was, I think, one of the most difficult years anyone alive at the time had to get through. And I had a lot that I needed to unpack, and those were, I've said this elsewhere, those were like the sturdiest images I had at my disposal. Those felt like the most solid and fundamental stories and structures that I knew of and that I had been exposed to. And they felt like kind of a secure place to just get a foothold and try to tell a cohesive story after a year in which cohesive stories felt elusive.
Nice. Yeah, I can't imagine, not just you, but all the parents who either had their kids or had that first year of school during the COVID. I mean, obviously, COVID isn't eradicated, but
right.
Life is just so different. The before and after 2020 is just a complete difference. So yeah, that's. But I love this story. I also love the fact that you talked about how you pictured the labyrinth. I don't think we think about it, those of us who read the Greek, stories as kids. But thinking about it, you brought it up in your book, the fact that there's no door. There's no way to close the labyrinth. One of the things that you did, and I was actually talking to my daughter, she stopped by briefly this morning, and I brought up to her the fact that this is a 160-page book, and yet you gave depth, backstory, empathy, humanity to some of these characters that I hadn't seen before. The fact that you go back to, and I don't think this is spoiling anything, it's the Greek stories, but the fact that you added that history of the Minotaur as a child, which also reminds me, I'm really, really glad that the Greeks named the Minotaur, because I kind of thought about it when you said it earlier. It's like if a comic book character was writing this story, he would have been Man-Bull. That's all there is to it.
Which is also good, but in a different way.
Yeah, it's a different take. But What really got you into this? Because I've told people before, I used to really not like retellings of stories for the most part, but I think this year has taught me that I don't like bad retellings of stories, because I read H.G. Perry's A Far Better Thing, which is a retelling of the Tale of Two Cities in a fairy world. That was excellent. I read John Wiswell's Wearing the Lion, which is a retelling of Heracles with his own unique take on it. That was excellent. Um, and this one, I had just read it last night. I don't have my review up for it. I'm not saying this because you're on here. I'm just telling you, 160 pages. This is a 5-star book for me. You, especially without, I'm not going to give this part away because this is not in the original story. You nailed the ending. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I think I'm really happy to hear that. Thanks for saying that. I'm so glad it worked for you. That was the yeah, all the turns that the story takes, and all the things we learn about, like the way he's remembering things, the way he's justifying things. That was the part that I knew it would have to land with people, and it would have to resonate with people for the book to hold together. And yeah, I'm so glad to hear that worked for you, and it made sense, kind of the journey that we go on with him.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever read the last couple of pages so much thinking to myself, because I hadn't been, obviously I'm not looking at the page numbers while I'm reading. I'm like, oh my goodness, I hope it's ending here. Because I was like, I did not necessarily want to see that next chapter. I think it ended perfectly. Brought back everything back full circle. It was perfect. What? How much research, for lack of a better word, how much research? Because again, you not only take what the generic stories are, but you also give them a lot of backstory. How much research went into it, and almost how important it was for you? Wow, that almost came out in English. How important was it for you to give the Minotaur backstory so that he's not just a monster in our heads?
Yeah, no, it was really fun to kind of dig into, the versions of these stories that we have that are still around. Because of course there are also so many other versions of that haven't survived, that we don't know everything about. So kind of constructing I guess my headcanon, for want of a better term, for this character, was really interesting. I had the Dolaires, obviously. That's kind of the text for me. So I went back over my copy of that. I looked at Ovid's version. A lot of the first chapter especially draws on Ovid's version for Metamorphosis. There's this there are these beautiful moments where, like, I think shepherds see them flying overhead, and fishermen see them flying overhead and stand up and think that gods have come to the earth, because humans don't fly like that. And I thought that image of people just like doing their jobs in the early morning, and seeing this happen, was so beautiful. And there's this great image that I think is in Ovid, of Daedalus testing the wings out indoors, and that became the opening image of the first chapter, of this flight happening in this cluttered workshop, because I thought that was just such a marvelous image that I wanted to steal. I looked at Emily Wilson's newer Odyssey translation in particular, just to get a feel for that language, because I didn't want to do like the way the old Spartacus show from a few years ago would kind of have like faux Latin sentence structure, like people would say gratitude instead of thank you, to kind of mirror the cadence of the way people might have talked. I didn't want to get that much into it because I'm not a linguist or historian, and if I tried to do like a Marie Renaud thing and like recreate what we think like Bronze Age Crete was like, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't be very good with me doing it. But I did want to have that, I guess, that feeling of solidity and antiquity that I get when I look at this older material, in a way that would be also just be unobtrusive and let me kind of write about today and write about the stuff we're all preoccupied with. Other stuff I looked at. I left out the story of Perdix, Daedalus's nephew, who he threw off of the Acropolis because he was a better inventor. That is it's a truly wild story that makes it kind of hard to build up sympathy for the guy. So that is not in my book. If you want to read about Daedalus committing a gnarly murder even before he builds the labyrinth, I believe that is in Ovid. And it is a wild, wild story. If anyone wants to do a retelling of that, it's right there. It's great material, just waiting for someone to pick it up. And then one other big source, and then I'll stop because I could go on for hours. Is no, sorry, two more things, and then I think I'll have covered your question without talking too much. Pseudo Apollodorus is one of the earlier surviving sources for a lot of the versions of Daedalus that we have now. And that was where I found the only mention I've been able to find so far of Daedalus's wife and Icarus's mother, Naucrate. And there's not a lot on her. I think she's very briefly described as someone who was enslaved in Minos's household, and that's it. But that did at least begin to answer this big question that I started to formulate when I sat down to write the book, which is, who is Icarus's mother? Where did he come from? So finding that mention and trying to start building a character with her own biography and history that just doesn't get talked about a lot in Ovid or a lot of the surviving versions. That was really fun too. It felt like a great opportunity to explore who exactly was this person, what was this relationship. Why don't we ever hear about her in the more famous versions of the story? So that was a really exciting opportunity and a really cool piece of information to come across. And then you asked about the take on Asterion, the Minotaur. I have to give credit here to my classmate at the time, because a lot of the story started as a writing workshop piece in Gotham Writers Workshop, where I was taking online classes at the time. And my friend Emily, who was in the class with me and had just a lot of good notes on this story throughout, that chapter was a late addition where we see them building the labyrinth. We see Asterion. We see this little bullheaded boy who no one quite knows what to do with. And you see him kind of pushed into the role of being this monster that King Minos wants to have, kind of like bringing clout to his island and his kingdom. And a lot of the genesis of that chapter was from some great questions and some great notes that my friend Emily had of just, was he just a little boy with the head of a bull? I can see him playing with the workers who are building the labyrinth. That was a very specific image that I think she imagined and shared with me. And eventually I realized I wanted to build a whole chapter around that image and around this idea that the character of the Minotaur is so much scarier if he didn't have to be a monster, if he isn't this mindless flesh-eating creature sent by the gods to just be pure retribution and pure appetite. But if maybe he had some opportunity to have a normal childhood and that was just taken away from him by humans, that is so much scarier to me. And I think, again, reflects the stuff that we're all kind of going through and trying to process together right now. That I wanted to talk about with the book. And that became one of my favorite chapters, just kind of exploring how he's only really the Minotaur because all of the humans around him, all the people who are supposed to be the responsible adults, everyone with authority and agency and language, everyone who has some opportunity to show this little boy kindness doesn't do it. He's the Minotaur because of all of them.
Exactly. The fact that he is physically a monster by nature, but character, he's only a monster by nurture, I think really set up that tone. I really have to say there's only two characters in your book that really 100%. There's nothing good about them. What you did with Minos, he's a jerk. I'll just leave it at that.
I agree.
And I think you pretty much wrote Zeus as Zeus. I mean, you talk about Daedalus throwing his nephew off. I mean, Hephaestus, I think, isn't that the one that Zeus threw off? It's like, yeah, like you still kind of had that story, and it was just Zeus's story. So
That's true. I didn't even realize that. But yeah, there's a really interesting parallel there.
yeah. So again, crazy book. I love the fact that you got the you've got your bad guys, which I think you have to have, but you've also got these sympathetic characters. I think you also humanized Daedalus. I mean, I know you didn't keep in the whole throwing the nephew off the cliff thing, but you did have a part in there which I will not will not spoil it, but it's a part that he remembers that basically he's told himself a different story this whole time that only comes out at the end about how he treated someone. And I think you know which one I'm talking about. But the fact that that is kind of there at the end, he proves that he's not a great guy. He's a good guy. He tries to be a good guy, but he still makes mistakes. And he still has his own demons to deal with. Also, you definitely prove that Minos is not a guy to mess around with. Even if you get rid of him, he's got ways to get back at you. That was a very apropos Tartarus moment, shall we say, for Daedalus, and things coming back around 360 on you, or 100. No, 360. Yeah, that's right. Almost at 180. That's not. That would have been the other way around. So again, I love this story. 160 pages. I know this is your debut. I can't wait to see what you're working on next, to be honest with you. This book was so good. Told you everything you needed to tell you, no filler. The only thing that threw me off a couple times was the time jumps, where all of a sudden, because one moment we're here, and one moment he's thinking about something, like, oh wait, he said in a different city. Okay, this is backstory. But I think it worked well though too, because I also think sometimes it's jarring when people have like the big, date or whatever up at the top to let you know that you're in a different spot. The fact that let's face it, this is how a person thinks. We're in something, and then we're thinking about something that happened, and then we're like, oh crud, we're in the moment again. So I get that. But yeah, beautiful book. And one thing you talked about your writing, I do want to let everybody know who reads this. It is a retelling of it, and no, he's not using the classic Greek in some of this, and he's not necessarily following that, how certain words would be used. But it's also very much it feels proper. It feels in the time. You're not bringing out current colloquialisms or pop rock references or anything. So when I'm reading this, I still feel like I'm reading a classical book. It's just not the book that I've read before.
Yeah, I wanted it to be my figuring out like how to market this and like even what genre to call it was extremely unwieldy, and the shortest accurate description I have found for it is a dark fantasy Greek mythology continuation. Because I very much wanted to like keep the story going. It's not a big spoiler, I think, to say that Icarus, Daedalus, and the king all die in the opening chapter, and then the story continues from there. But I wanted I also wanted the remembering and Daedalus's retelling specifically of everything he did to be really active, for everything to be about, how we all tell narratives to justify certain things, how we kind of maintain the systems that are grinding a lot of people up right now through consensus, through agreeing that we'll remember things a certain way, through claiming that we don't have a choice in certain situations when maybe we do have a choice, and how that happens in really big ways and really little ways. I wanted everyone to identify with him, no matter what kind of crazy stuff he's doing in the book, because I think and again, this is an exaggeration. Hopefully no one is building a labyrinth right now. Hopefully no one is feeding anyone else to a man bull. But we are all enlisted to do stuff like this in big ways and small. And I wanted to have people reflect on that and to try to move towards a place of honesty about that, as I try to have Daedalus himself eventually moved towards a place of honesty with that too.
Gotcha. I had to look his name up real quick so I wouldn't get it wrong. I do have to say, you did Theseus dirty, by the way, though. That was. I think you had a little fun with that part.
I was maybe having a little too much fun with that part because I don't think they would get along. I don't think Daedalus would like him. I don't think Daedalus would want him to occupy a lot of space in his story. So that's kind of how that came out. That was one of the earliest parts I wrote, and I didn't change it that much.
Well, I loved it. It was one of those, I almost kind of, I was waiting. It's like, wait, is this going to go the way I think it's going to go? And it did, but I was not disappointed at all. So again, 160-page book with a story that a lot of people are familiar with. There's only so much we can touch on without spoiling anything. What are you working on now, if you're working on anything at all?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of a new book that is about superheroes. Superheroes are kind of my other great love. And, the way superheroes have shifted into this place of cultural dominance in the last, 15 years or so, and like even the last 20 years, really. And, the way America has embraced some stuff that I don't think has been great in the last 25 years. The book is me kind of wrestling with that. The time jumps in the current draft of that are really bad. There are memories within memories and time jumps within time jumps, and it's very confusing. But I'm having a lot of fun. I'm kind of throwing everything at the wall in terms of what superheroes mean to me, and what certain archetypes mean to me. It's also another story about parenting. This story it's basically about a mom who was a superhero as a teenager and was on this team of other teen superheroes, and eventually felt like she was part of this endless cycle of violence that wasn't really helping to make anything better. And so left and became a mother and started teaching history at her local community college, and never looked back until now, when her now adult son, who's a teacher himself, gets into some trouble, and she has to put on the cape again and reunite with her old teammates. So I am working on finishing a draft of that, and hopefully getting it readable, and then seeing if I can find a home for it. But I'm very excited about it.
Nice. Can't wait to see it. Sounds like it might be a minute, but I still can't wait to see it.
It might take a little bit, but it'll be worth the wait.
All right. A few wrap-up questions I always like to ask everybody. First of all, what are you reading now?
Oh man, so we're recording this in September, so we are starting to get into spooky season. So I am a big John Langan fan, and I am finishing Children of the Fang, which came out a few years ago. And then once we get into October, I'm excited to crack open Lost in the Dark, his new book. And I just found out he's got a new novel coming out next year, which I think makes 10 years since The Fisherman, which I read during the pandemic, and which is a great novel just about processing grief and loss and betrayal, and that kind of stuff is catnip for me and makes me very happy these days. So those are a couple of the things that I'm reading right now, or looking forward to reading.
Oh, nice. So yeah, if you like your horror stories, come check us out again on Sunday. We're going to have a live stream with a bunch of horror authors are telling you what they think you should read for spooky season. So that's going to be fun.
Hell yeah. I will have to check that out.
It is. Yeah. It's one of those things I like horror, but yeah, this time of year just really, it just like ups the ante a little bit. All right. So other question I love to ask, is there anything, and this is basically an open-ended question to let you talk about whatever you want to talk about. Is there anything that you thought you might be asked or were hoping you'd be asked that didn't get asked yet?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Yeah, I mean, yeah. What I'll say, what I try to say at every opportunity, especially right now, and I don't want to. I'm going to try not to say anything that's going to get you in trouble. But a lot of the book is about authoritarianism and about the compromises that it asks you to make, and about ways, and even before this administration, even before this presidency, things that happen in our society that basically sacrifice people that we're asked to accept. And a lot of the book is just about the danger of accepting that. So I guess what I want to leave anyone who reads and appreciates the book with is, you do not have to accept things that are happening right now that you think are unfair, that you think are maybe trying to restrict, what people can say on television, that are maybe trying to restrict who you can humanize, who's being victimized in other parts of the world. Things like that, if they don't feel right to you, don't accept anyone telling you that there's nothing you can do. There's nothing wrong with the situation. There's nothing you can say on behalf of people in Gaza. There's nothing you can say on behalf of comedians who make jokes that a regime doesn't like and get their shows pulled off the air. There are ways to fight back. There are protests you can go to. There are causes you can donate to get food to people. Whatever you're able to do, it does help, and it helps keep that muscle exercise, that muscle of not just accepting it. No matter how bad things get, I have to believe that people have an ability to not accept something. And even in as dire a situation as Daedalus is in the book, I think there is a place in your heart where you can say, no, this isn't right, and I don't accept it. And I just want everyone who is listening to protect that place and to keep it safe no matter what happens.
Too long didn't read King Minos, and anybody who looks like King Minos is bad. Got it. All right.
Yep.
All right. And then a couple of easier questions. One, and I brain dumped because I just went off the rails on that one. Oh, you know what? Let's the one question I like to ask people: do you have a skill, achievement, hobby, accomplishment, anything that you've done besides writing that you wish more people would ask you about once in a while?
Oh man, I feel very exposed that I don't have any other marketable skills. Good question. So my kids really love the game Guess That Animal. I think they picked it up from SciShow Kids on YouTube, where you name some traits of an animal, and your partner has to guess the animal that you are thinking of. And my eldest in particular is cutthroat at that game. He will guess the animal sometimes before I have finished naming the first trait. So I think I'm pretty good at that. I think I've gotten a lot better at that in the last few years. So that's a skill that I have.
Gotcha. So now we know what party game not to play against them. All right. And then the last thing I always love to ask, I do love my brick and mortars. Shout out to a or a couple brick and mortar bookstores of your choice.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, I'm definitely going to shout out Word Bookstore right here in Jersey City. They're my local bookstore. Big shout out to Steven and Hans and Will and everybody there. And I am actually, I think this goes up in time. I'm doing my local Jersey City / New York City area book event there at Word in Jersey City near Hamilton Park on the evening of Saturday, October 4th. And if you're in the area, anyone watching, please come check it out. It's a great little bookstore. Everyone there is so friendly and will talk your ear off about your genre of choice and whatever they're reading. They got a great kids section, and it's a good place to be. So I love it there. I'm there all the time. I'm sure they're sick of me. And I'm very excited to be doing one of my first book things there.
Yeah. No bookstore is ever sick of people being there. I will have to say I don't normally do a PSA, but Seamus, we've got to get you a little bit more on social media, because there is another Seamus Sullivan who's also in Jersey City and who is also not you.
No way. So I didn't know about this. Oh, no, wait.
Yeah, I shared it with Cassidy over at Tor, because because usually I try to find something, because I like to there'll be links for the bookstores, etc., down in the show notes. But I usually like to, give a little shout out for, this is their Instagram, or this is, whatever. And yeah, I'd looked at one and I'm like, Well, it does say Seamus Sullivan and it does say Jersey City, but I'm looking at the book and I'm looking at what this person's posting is like, that doesn't seem right. And I asked Cassie, he's like, yeah, no, that's not him. So you've got another Seamus Sullivan in town.
Fascinating. You know what? I don't know if this is the same guy, but I know there is another Seamus Sullivan, or at least there was a few years ago, because there's a restaurant near Hamilton Park where he's a regular, and I think may even have like a little plaque by the stool. And so when I told him my name there, they said, no way. He's a different guy. He's in there all the time. So there's at least one, maybe two doppelgangers out there. But I don't think any of us have crossed paths yet.
No, I just don't want anybody who like sees this and is like, oh, Seamus Sullivan. Hey, he said he's in Jersey City, and they look it up, is like, huh, that's what this guy's posting. So no, that's not my author.
Oh boy, okay, yeah, maybe
it's a different person.
Thank you for clarifying that. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah. I always try to do a little bit of the Google stalking or whatever they call it on an author, just if nothing else, just to have a little bit of an idea about you, especially as a debut author, so that A, I don't say anything incorrectly, and B, maybe something brings up an interesting question I wouldn't have thought of. But yeah, I only found one Seamus Sullivan in Jersey City, and it definitely was not you. But my goal now is to get you on at least on Blue Sky, so that because that's where all the authors that love Twitter, they're hanging out on Blue Sky, so that's the place to be.
That's what I hear. Yeah, I got to at least set up the website. I've been dragging my feet on that. I'm not terribly online.
No. And let's face it, I love my authors. Most of the ones that have really good websites, though, they either do that type of stuff as their main job, or they're big enough to have a team. Because even a lot of my favorite authors, I'll go to their website and like they've had 3 books out, and it's like you look at the news section, is like, this is from 2021. So they're not always good on keeping it up to date. I know it's another headache off on the side, but it does help the fans. That's all I'm saying. All right.
No, I appreciate it. And I appreciate the clarification there. I'm glad I learned about that from you and not from someone saying, why did you post this?
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, again, I want to thank Tor for bringing this to my attention. Absolutely love the book. I forgot I put it back there. I'm touching the wrong book. But B, I also want to thank you for taking out your afternoon. By the time you guys are seeing this, his book will be out tomorrow, because I'm going to post this on the night before the laydown date. So you will not have long to wait to go out there and pick up this book. It is perfect for book clubs. I know you guys book clubs don't like over 300 pages. This thing's 160. It's perfect as a palate cleanser. And it is one of my 5-star reads for the year. So check out Seamus Sullivan. Keep an eye on what's coming next, but definitely pick up this book. And I do think it's got just a little bit of horror in it, which is going to work for spooky season as well.
I did my best.